So like kind of were these the right tests?
We live.
Cool. You ready to go start?
It's on, man.
Let's give them something to talk about. I see the energy running out. I got a planet to run around. Okay.
It's like I got like a passive aggressive way to make someone stop talking, and
It's going.
We're live, by the way. So
It worked.
It works. Mission accomplished.
Right. Beth is like, I'm out of here.
We've got two chatty people showing down.
We do. Welcome everybody. Memorial Day, Murph Day. Gym is packed today. We had started classes at 6 a.m. just because so many people wanted to do it. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. From 7 o'clock on, it was about 30 to 35 people per class.
That's it?
35 people per class.
Yeah.
What do you mean that's it?
I don't know. I feel like we've had like 60 in here at one time.
No. Well, maybe back.
I remember Alamo had like 35, 40 people in a class.
Not per class.
I think last year it was hotter, and so people tried to come
Earlier. Yeah,
and so there was
that's a good point.
a real bottleneck.
Yeah. Well, we get a little overlap, but
It's not hot today.
no, last year we set the class sizes at 25. This year we went to 35.
Okay.
And they were all full, which is cool. So we probably put about 130 people, 140 people through Murph this year. So that's awesome. It was awesome to see everybody in there doing it. It's an important workout, and we really emphasize the technique. And if you're not going to do it, if you're not going to do your squats, full squats, if you're not going to do plank push-ups, if you're not going to get chin over the bar, then just mark it scaled or do a scaled version. It's easy enough. And I saw Chad out there with the wall balls out there for some people, which is great.
For depth check.
Yeah, for depth check. It's awesome. It's I don't think it's off-putting. I think it's important. Everybody wants to do it right.
As long as everybody keeps in mind why we're doing it.
Right. Beth Stankevich is with us today. She's on our Añejo team, and she is the most experienced. I mean that directly, not necessarily
She's old.
An insinuation about her age.
She's almost going to age up into the next master's category.
Yes. But she's also the most experienced athlete on the team. And I will also say, depending upon which of the team members are listening, probably the most
adult.
Yes, there you go. That's well said.
She made a spreadsheet.
Can't use
Very organized.
Mature. No, it's
perfect.
And not everybody use that spreadsheet.
And I'll tell you, as an affiliate owner, and I feel sorry for CJ Martin, who's got 3 teams. I do. Like he's excited, but I could tell by my brief conversation I had with him, it was like, oof.
They're not all coming out of the exact same gym, though.
Well, yes and no. They all 3 teams train at that gym.
Yeah.
He's only has one other gym, but down there. But all 3 of those, I believe all 3 of those were. I don't think they were from Washington gym. I don't know if not. I thought they were all 3 Southern California. Nonetheless, I hope that he has three Beths, one on each team, because she helped corral, keep things focused, and then it makes it easier as a gym owner because it can get chaotic with teams, and there's sometimes drama and all of that stuff. And a credit to our athletes in the competition on Añejo team. That was this year, I think, was one of the most level-headed groups of athletes.
Agreed.
When it's a team of 4, it's a little easier than a team of 6.
Fact.
A couple more variables in there.
I think with Emily and I and the team being
that's right, Emily.
Both busy. Emily Scott.
Yeah, Emily Scott.
We both have jobs that are more 9 to 5.
Right.
And Jackson and Christian. And we are both maybe wired to be a bit more organized and planful. So the 2 of us combined to make sure we had schedules for training.
Yeah. So Jackson's a coach. Jackson's a coach here, and he's exceptionally busy with his teen athletes that he has, his private coaching plus he's plus the classes he coaches. He's in here literally 7 days a week. I talked to him last week. I'm like, dude, you need to take a break from this place. You cannot.
Yeah.
And it's 5
a
a.m.
real thing.
Yeah. It's 5 a.m. to like 5 p.m.
Oh yeah, he's here he'll go home in between the middle of the day, depending on the day.
Right. Says this broadcast was deleted on Facebook. By the way, that's what it indicates.
It popped up saying that the Facebook thing was disconnected, but I reconnected it.
Yeah, let me see if we're live in Facebook.
Thank you, Gwen.
Are we live in Facebook or not?
I'll check.
I can't tell.
I'll pull it up real quick.
Sorry, everybody.
I mean, it shows up here. I don't see anything saying that it's not connected on the Facebook.
It looks like it's a live video. Well, the problem is it's.
Yeah, we're on. Happening now. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Yeah. So.
Oh, you use I'm a hard athlete photo.
It's very appropriate.
Hey, I like that picture. It's a tough picture, but anyway, back to Beth. So Christian Boyd is a full-time firefighter. Jackson's full-time coach, and he's busy in here 7 days a week. And Emily also has a full-time job.
Insurance.
Yeah.
Something very technical. Too.
Yeah. I think she's either an auditor or I forget what the term is that they use, but anyway, she works in the insurance industry. And then they also train in here in the gym and get their training done and got their team training done. But Beth, I learned on this trip, which I did not know, and maybe someone told me and I just was oblivious to it in the past. But Beth is, I did know that she works for Uber.
I did.
You did?
After grad school for 2 years.
For 2 years. And who are you working with now?
Biorad.
Are you allowed to say? Oh, you're
biotech.
Biorad. Yeah. I know Biorad.
I help manage a data science and bioinformatics team at Biorad. Science nerd for life. And
she has a PhD. And is the PhD in microbiology?
No, it's in neuroscience and human cognition, attention. Don't use it at all. I mean, other than the skills you gain.
It could lead us down a rabbit hole having a discussion about Elon Musk's Neuralink connection, the company that he's building, and so we could go there. But
she's like, I don't want to touch it.
I don't think it would be very kind or well informed on my part at this point.
But the awesome part about it is that Beth is obviously an analytical type, so she created myriad spreadsheets for the team to help keep them on track. Which is amazing. But she held down. She'd come here. I'd see her. I'd come in, and she's got her laptop, and I always want to say hi, but now I'm cautious about saying hi. I'm like, oh, don't want to, because she could be in the middle of a Zoom call with 20 other people that are way smarter than I am.
Yeah, you're here for an hour training session, but you're still here for 6 hours.
Yeah. If I can't get in the morning before work and with the training schedule that was needed with the team, moving my training to the back half of the day and the commute that I had, I would come early to avoid traffic and then take meetings and work from the gym and then kind of work out, however, because I'm too old now to do a late night and an early morning training and keep flip-flopping.
I would see her huddled in the cold out back, trying to avoid the noise. Wherever there's noise, I see her outside, huddled with a 30-inch box as her desk.
Big puff jacket on.
Just very glamorous.
Or out front.
It's real, you know?
And then when weather warmed up, she would go out front to the tables out front, and then occasionally we'll see her
sit in the sun a
little bit.
In
the lobby too. Lobby's dangerous because you run into people that want to talk to you.
Yes.
And then the other part that makes Beth such an awesome teammate is that she has already CrossFit Games experience on a team. And she came out of a very good affiliate that was always competitive with an individual games athlete that was always there.
Athletes.
That's right.
Yeah.
CrossFit Davis. Christy Remmel's gym, right?
No, Kirsten Pedri.
Kirsten
Matt
Pedri.
Pedri, although
Kirsten Pedri's.
Kirsten
Pedri
was never right on any announce. Her name never was right, even when she was an individual threat. And Jeff Patzer are the two individual athletes, and then Caitlin Cassis, after being on the team, moved down to San Diego and was on teams, I believe,
Caitlin.
plural, with Invictus.
With Invictus,
she,
that's right.
she was on the NorCal Alliance when we did the grid thing.
That's right.
Yeah,
did not know that.
She's a phenomenal
that was
athlete.
Very fit. Now a mom, still fit.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, that gym has a bit of a pedigree for producing CrossFit athletes. And by and large, though, that community is a lot like Diablo's. I think it strikes me as being a lot like Diablo's, just welcoming environment,
family oriented,
very well run,
very community based.
Right.
That's kind of comes before everything. That much like here, when that kind of athletes would do classes. So obviously we had more training. to do, but we'd either do a version of the class or the same class. So every week in, week out, we were in classes.
That's awesome.
So kind of the same sort of like, no one's above other people. The community is really important. We would come back and judge for, we had like a yearly in-house competition, and all of the athletes would judge and not compete. And so it was just always really, really important.
Awesome. Prioritizing the community aspects.
I tell people don't follow me on Twitter, because that's where my provocative posts are. These those are the ones that are going to come back to haunt me like 3 to 4 years from now. I tweeted that. Are you sure that was me? But I tweeted this last weekend because I started thinking about, there's been some discussion around, there's been a few female athletes that have discussed the mental duress of competition, or hinted at it, because Mal O'Brien's, we still don't know for sure, but she implied, or it was implied, or maybe people interpreted it as being a mental health issue. And so I tweeted, if for CrossFit Games athletes, if you're feeling anxiety or any other mental health issues, take a break from your programming a couple days a week and go do classes. There you'll find it'll give you a healthy perspective on fitness, and then also find a very supportive community. And I didn't say that just to, kind of poke fun at the athletes for doing it, but there's been a proliferation of camps, competitive training camps out there. And the athletes are essentially pulled away from the communities that they grew up in and where they learned CrossFit. And the thing that makes them awesome is, people, and healthiest people, and keeps them coming in. They take themselves away, and I get 100% why that has to happen. And, but I think it may be contributing to this stress that these athletes are feeling.
When you say it takes away from the community, I think it's almost like there's two separate communities. Like, you have your competitive community, and then you have your gym family community. Right. And the gym family community, like you said, it's not as much pressure on performance based. It's just, showing up and having fun and being a part of the community. But when you look at that competitive community, the back warm-up area is a good example of it. I remember our team was just a little nervous about everybody flexing and just walking around and just have fun. That's the best part.
Yeah, it's easy, but that's easy to say.
It is. Well, easy to say.
Beth, I'm curious on your perspective on that, and your thoughts towards, would you be a better athlete if you'd gone to camp?
Yes. I think you look at any professional sport, and they are not showing up to a Sunday league, right?
From a competitive standpoint.
Yeah. And also, just the reality is, I can work my job 9 to 5, but athlete is full time. It's inside, outside of the gym, and you need to focus on your own bits. That being said, it's really isolating and lonely, and it's not a team sport. Unless you're a team, but even team, it really is. You
somewhat individualized, because you got to work on your own stuff.
Exactly. So that can be really isolating and lonely and pressurized. And so I think that's maybe a benefit of the training camps, is that you do have people that are there to talk to
in the same boat,
while still being professional. Me jumping into a class is probably not the same for, athletic development that I would need if I was trying to be the top of the top. That being said, I value that. Right. I am a happier person. Yeah. But I'm also not a top individual or team athlete. So.
I think even taking like you said, if you're feeling beat down and just isolated and, lonely, it's just let's just deload a week or two and just go to class, just to kind of, have some kind of a relationship, rekindling of the community aspect.
And I think that reset has to happen in some way for everybody.
Whether it's after the season,
right at the end of the season, or just drop in. I've seen athletes go to Bali and go to CrossFit Wanderlust, and that looks beautiful.
I like that phrasing, reset. And not to compare myself to the caliber of athletes that are out there today, but
I feel that.
But in 2013, after competing at the games, and then coming back and then starting training for 2014, first I felt a lot of pressure to be as good as I was in 2013. There were certain expectations, and I did not enjoy the process. And that's when 2014 is when was when I really started to dislike CrossFit, and was looking to anything else but CrossFit to do. And I was injured in about May. I popped a calf, and I quickly withdrew. I was like, okay, I probably could have
took an excuse.
Rehab. Oh yeah,
right.
I took an excuse. And then once that kind of healed, then what I did is I started going, and this is where that tweet came from, is I started going to classes. And it was classes where I fell back in love with it. Like I started to get camaraderie, friendships, teasing, the people didn't feel sorry for you, but they also held you up when you weren't, if something wasn't going your way or you weren't having a good workout, all those things like class. And I was like, oh,
I'm not going to lie. I can get way more training done in an hour. That's my own schedule than I can in an hour of class.
Sure.
That being said, I look forward to that as a treat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm derailing the class at every moment because I'm chatty and it's like my social time now. Because when I'm training, I have a resting grump face on and I need things. I have short time and I need to get things done and I don't want people talking to me.
Yeah.
For that reason, I admire the athletes tremendously, is their self-discipline, like Sandy coming in. And she would come in, and not only that, you got to come into a gym in Diablo where everybody else is having fun.
Yeah.
The classes are fun. And she's coming in with 3 bags, off to the corner, setting up her little video camera, doing her stuff. People are high on it. When she has to, if she talks to people, it takes away from the amount of 3 hours only 3 hours she's got to get her shit done. And that takes a tremendous amount of self-discipline just to kind of throw yourself into the wood chipper every day.
Yeah.
And you come off poorly because you're trying not to engage with people because it's hard to disengage. And so you come off as a not so nice person.
Right.
And I've had people tell that to me before.
Right.
Because I just had to focus and not look people in the eye. But then when they got to meet me, it was a little different.
Right.
That's always been my thing too, is like over the years when, competing, it's like, I'm always in here during the time when nobody's here, just because if I'm going to focus and get anything done, I have to be here when nobody's here.
I think that is one of the things that people say about meeting CrossFit Games athletes. They meet them like, oh my God, they were so nice, because they don't look like, they're
not in the trenches at the moment.
I will give you a behind the scenes though from the semifinals this weekend. We actually got to go by some of I think the top heat of the women had finished, and then we were going out for we're the first heat of the teams. And some of the top women were using the elevator and the underground traverse back
to come back,
rather than what everybody else was doing for the teams, to just go through the crowds. It's faster. It's way slower to do that. But I think that's by design, because they didn't have to talk to people.
Yeah, because they would.
And they probably didn't. They probably had a tighter turnaround and they, need to cool down, warm back up and get ready. But
especially with that final heat too, like there's a lot of pressure in that final heat, and if maybe that event didn't go your way, do you want to talk to anybody? And do you want to take pictures or sign autographs?
You don't want to.
And the women that are here, some of the top social media darlings, people really look up to, it was Lauren and Katrin and Bethany, Danny. It was just so many people that I think also the fans know and love and obviously want time with, and I'm sure they'd want to give it to them, but they have a job to do.
Yeah. They're there for a purpose. They're not there to do social media influencing.
This is a great transition into the semifinals event in Pasadena. And let's if we could first talk just about, because I want to dig into the team side of it, and I want to dig into the kind of the specific experiences you guys had with your workouts, and what your perspective is on the semifinals, like all of the different variation, all the different things that you had to go through, from how they did the corral to judging to everything. Before that though, semifinals versus regionals. Semifinals versus regionals. Which is your favorite?
I'm more for regionals. I'm more for the regionals.
We were spoiled. Del Mar. Once it got to Del Mar, spoiled.
Right. What I think that's and now look, this is their first year of semifinals coming back. Like they've had a 4 or 5 year hiatus from doing these. So honestly, this is no knock on CrossFit.
Yes, this is a knock.
It's more venue.
Yeah, well, no, and I also
venue part of it.
I also heard that they tried to get San Diego, the Del Mar.
Oh, they did,
and they couldn't get the date. They couldn't get the date.
So it was a timing issue.
Yeah, so it's timing. So like they genuinely tried, because I think everybody loves it. But I vote for regionals too. But again, it's biased by maybe think, well, no, experience, but also things were smaller then. It was easier for regionals was easier to do. Although they were spending a lot of money for a lot of regionals, their budget was probably much higher than when they were losing a lot of money doing these things. But regionals was cool from the perspective of the affiliate and having things to do outside of the competition event, like going out into the vendor area. It was just like hanging out. And then you had tents where you would hang out and sit around, and I'd go over to Invictus's tent, say hello to those guys. I'd go over to another tent. Other affiliates would come by our tent. People would come by, say hello to the athletes. It felt more like a festival.
Yes.
I don't even know if that's possible with a semifinal event.
I think it is possible. I think it just needs to be kind of drawn out that way, right? Like if it was, we were in a warehouse. I mean, it's not a warehouse. It's a convention. It's a basic convention center.
It's where you do a trade show. It's where you do a trade show.
Yeah. And you've got your, the security holding the doors up, and you've got the cafeteria food. You've got, it's the rules on coming in and out with food or drink. I mean, CrossFitters are very particular about their food and what they're eating, and the stuff that was there that was provided wasn't necessarily what you would want to see in this environment.
That's right, because when you go to a convention center, they own the concessions.
Yeah,
it's 100% their responsibility, and they serve what they want.
There was a lot of stuff around there though, which was cool.
Oh no,
the whole downtown area. So like you could go out and like walk around.
But that was, and I agree. I said the same thing in my email. That was cool, but it brought you away from.
It took you away from.
You weren't with other CrossFitters. Yeah, like that part was actually like, oh, this is nice going on. Going to a real restaurant like within walking distance.
Yeah, where Del Mar, you couldn't really get away with that.
No. Beth,
I will say, I mean, obviously, I wasn't spectating a ton. While there was maybe not enough water or ice baths the first day in the back, I would say the back experience was light years better than in 2017, which was the last time that I did regionals. The amount of warm-up equipment we had was on point. They actually had light dumbbells to warm up. They had they taped the handstand tape was there. The tape on the rope was there. I can remember every other regionals that never happening. Like you would get on this floor and the box for the handstand push-up would now be there, and you wouldn't have been able to use it in the warm-up room. So I'd say that has been really
that was a huge benefit. I mean, like you had a closed environment to warm up versus in a wind tunnel. Oh yeah. Like at Del Mar was like you're covered, but you're still exposed to any kind of
that's
climate that's there.
And the corralling and the to and from the
would you say it was a longer corral time though?
It was a way longer because the walk. We had a longer
30 minutes. Oh, yeah, 30 minutes in the corral.
But unlike at Del Mar, you were allowed to go to the bathroom.
That's true.
So
you
very
said that
different.
You said that they didn't have the bathroom there in the back end.
So you did 2 corral points. You did a corral point at the warm-up space, and then you had to do an underground walk and elevator ride, which it was so fun. It felt like we were in the movie Aliens every time. There were supposed to be bathrooms at the second corral point, but they never arrived. I don't know why, but we always had corral, get chipped, get numbered, go bathroom.
Yeah. I think that like the difference between regionals to this semifinals, I mean, like you said, it could be the fact that we've been on a hiatus with CrossFit kind of managing and running this stuff, but there was a lot of like little things that were missed, like the ice barrels. Right, like one of the sponsors of the games they didn't have water because there was a logistical issue with the bathroom that was there. It was one hose to feed the bathroom, but they didn't have another hose to help fill the buckets.
Yeah, so that to me is
a small detail, like the bathroom in the second corral. Like it's like
those are like small jobs that got left off a spreadsheet.
Yeah, you should have been running that spreadsheet.
Right. No, it is.
I bet it's a good spreadsheet.
Maybe I don't know.
Here's the other thing too: is in a sponsorship agreement. So it's like these are tweaks that they'll make in the future. Yes. Like for example, if you're going to have an ice barrel or a cold plunge as a sponsor, part of the sponsorship should be the management of your equipment.
Yeah,
we'll give 2 passes, back passes for 2 people.
You set it up.
You set it up, and those things need to be filled, or you won't be back.
Yeah.
And put the obligation on the sponsors to be there.
I wonder if they had any of that issues on any of the other semifinals, because it seemed like there was just somebody just dropped the ball.
Someone didn't show up to work, kind of thing. Yeah, that could be that. That's interesting. I'm looking at my. I'm plugged in. Okay, there it is.
What, your
yeah,
mic's not working?
No, I thought it wasn't. My camera wasn't plugged in, but I'm seeing myself. So this is.
Are you wad drunk? Because you just came out of half Murph.
I'm a little bit wad drunk. And I felt like there were other like small jobs, but that's just execution.
Yeah.
Like first time execution at like they've never been to the Pasadena Convention Center. They've never been there.
That's true.
And so that's one of the things. That's one of the things about
plan.
like repeating Madison, right? Repeating Madison. People are like, well, they should go someplace every year. No, like you don't want to learn where the stuff is, where all the outlets are. Like what outlet works, what doesn't, which one has 20 amp versus 30 amp. I spoke to Aaron Kelly.
Yeah,
our former member who was on the floor at the semifinals with the camera.
He's at every games, every semifinals, regionals.
And he said to me, it's been great working there. He said he liked the venue, was loud. It made it hard to hear. But he said getting stuff done within the venue, like they needed to move one of the big speakers that was up overhead because it was blocking views. It was, one of the big giant speakers. And he said it cost him like $1,500 for them to move the speaker that was attached to the ceiling. And literally he goes, it's like on an electronic thing. It's not like they had to come on with a forklift and move it.
They'd have somebody from the union to come out and move it. $1,500 to push a button. Yeah.
But it's those kinds of things. Like, next time they come, they'll know that should be moved. Like if they come back. And I'm hoping they go back to Del Mar. But
I'm hoping they don't. I hope they go somewhere else than that spot. I personally, I wasn't a big fan I'm in the back. The back area was awesome for the athletes. They had, a whole space where they had tables and they can kind of get away from the crowds. And
that's cool.
But just from spectating, I feel like there was less seats.
Way fewer.
And even just the viewing from some of those seats. Like when I would go back into the briefing as a coach, they had us sitting on the far side of the bleachers. And there's some giant pillars that are like completely obstructing the view. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well,
the floor undulated.
That's another thing is it was not on concrete.
With waves.
Yeah.
And it was hot and stuffy.
Oh yeah, down there on the floor.
It was.
Whereas Del Mar, you're always kind of a little sad that you don't have a long sleeve shirt on.
Well, yeah. And I looked at Torian Pro and they were in a Del Mar type environment.
Oh, they were in a nice arena, spot. Yeah. But last year too, that was like sold out and filled up. And
sold out this year too.
Of course.
It's amazing.
I was wondering if they would be able to sell out Del Mar with the added seats or not. I would love to see it.
Well, they sold out Saturday, right?
So here's our vote. That's what we're voting for. CrossFit Games, if you're listening. And then kudos on all the equipment. I remember back at regionals when we had to bring our own warm-up equipment.
Yeah.
You guys who would truck it down because just so we had something to warm up on.
I think they made a financially and logistically healthy choice this year on keeping the equipment list really small and repeated almost entirely between individuals and teams. Obviously, we have a worm and they had a sled, but I think everything else was to a T what they used across the two.
And they didn't take any, like you said, they didn't take anything from the back area to, field the field, right? Like they didn't need dumbbells out there for the dumbbell bench press, but there was probably 12 platforms.
Let me tell you what, hats off to that. One of the things that I noticed that they executed so well was how fast they transitioned that floor between events.
Yeah.
Between team and them. It was remarkable. Those guys, we had one of our members volunteer, Bill Leeper. They worked their ass off.
Yeah.
Carrying that equipment back and forth, setting it up, and it looked pretty. It was nice.
Mm-hmm.
They still require you to bring your own warm-up stuff, and
that's a little weird.
Hilarious how few individual athletes had all their warm-up stuff like bands.
Yeah.
I brought a bag. It was on the spreadsheet. Yeah, I brought a bag of bands, and there were a number of individual athletes asking to use the bands that I brought in the back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was a lot of that stuff that just.
I heard Justin Medeiros use our bands.
Very, very proud to let him use that. Adam Knifers.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
All right, Adam. Adam, you owe me. All right. So that brings me to, so we're talking about different components of the experience. That brings me to the judging experience. And I mean, there's two workouts that judging impacted Diablo. And I would say that throughout the 6 events that they participated in as a team, judging for the most part, 90% of it, 95% of it wasn't an issue. When there was a no rep, it was a genuine no rep. And so that's the upside. On the downside, a errant judge or errant call, repeated errant calls. One errant call is not bad. Repeated errant calls is problematic in my mind. And it's disheartening for the team. And then it also creates discontent that spreads within the community. And we've seen it and unfortunately, I don't like when it ends up on social media and is broadcast repeatedly. Andrew Hiller's stuff on Spiegel's, in my estimation, it's way over the top and it's way too
clickbaity.
Yeah, it's very clickbaity, and unless you're there on the floor, judge, seeing what's going on, I dare anyone to try and judge the depth of Danny Spiegel's squats. She has incredibly large legs and a glute. And it's difficult, and she's a powerful woman. And he went off on it, and people may call me out on this one, but yeah, it's just like that. There's something else focused, but
it lacks a conversation, it lacks nuance, and it lacks solutions, and it lacks also bringing HQ into it, which I think I was talking to you earlier. I was thinking about it. They've made a lot. It lacks the knowledge of the choices that they did make. So whereas at the games in 2016, we had to be synchro in snatches at the bottom and the top, which is a nightmare to judge. A lot of their synchro choices were for ease, right? Synchro at the top only. Not having all four being synchro, synchro on the worm's a little bit easier to view because you're in a line. So, or not making things synchro, like the box jumps. Now I know there's some judging issues there, but
consistency wise,
but I believe that they probably made a lot of good choices for trying to make things easier to judge, putting tape marks or paint marks on the rope, right? It's very clear if you're below or above it.
Yeah. I didn't see any mess ups there. No. That was great. It was good.
But now when you get to the bad things and you're looking at, we're not in contention. Right. It doesn't matter. We're in the bottom half. We're not going to, lose out on a game spot, but we've seen this for individuals and we've seen this maybe for some teams. I don't know. When it comes to reps or events where the no reps really matter, like doing one more 65-pound thruster synchro doesn't matter. Doing one more seated legless, if that's a no rep, that really matters. So,
or a pirouette.
Or a pirouette. In the case of workout, was it second workout with the sandbag?
The first one was the
first workout with the sandbag. And they had to do 10 sandbag
clean and jerks.
10 sandbag clean and jerks.
Oh, with the worm.
Yeah, with the worm.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the hold even.
No, well, yeah, but so there was a buy-in. Let's skip the hold and go straight to the worm. They do 10 and then they go buy in again, and then they come back and they do 10 and they go buy in again. And the buy-in was double unders in the sandbag hold, and the other two athletes had to do a
bike and a run.
They traded off, and then they went and did their sandbag clean and jerks. And then each time they did 10, they moved it forward. And the judges were told in advance, keep the bag within the lane lines. And that's important because it's a very tight
out there, floor. Especially when you're dropping it. You don't want somebody that steps back and they catch a bag. You
catch a bag or like interfere with it.
So it was more of a safety thing than it was an actual standard.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Right. Because it wasn't like it wasn't giving anybody any advantage if they ended up taking a step.
Following the event, knowing where you were.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. Our judge decided in the third set of 10, not the first set, not the second set, but the third set of 10.
In the middle of the set.
Yeah, in the middle of this. Well, no, actually at the end.
It was the fourth set. It was the last set.
It was the last set.
It was the fourth set. I'm sorry, there's 4 sets. 4 sets of 3. 4 sets of 10. So it was in the last round. He decided that the bag not only needed to be in the lane left and right, but the bag also had to be in the lane front to back, which was no other team was doing.
And that was
a few other teams. And we hadn't done it like that the other 3 rounds of 10.
Or in the beginning of that round.
Or even in the beginning of that round.
And that's the thing. Like once they did get to a point where there was a no rep, then he decided you guys need to move this bag forward where it was for the previous 4 or 5 reps before that.
And when you're telling 4 exhausted athletes who are selling out.
Who can't
at
hear
the end of a
very well.
workout. Yeah. That's a really
it felt
good
really
point.
much like Murph 2016 games on the field where like I literally couldn't hear anything.
Yeah.
I didn't even see a woman get cart off the field of play because
the girl that they stepped over
to
get to the worm.
I saw nothing. So
and Christian said he was delirious. He said he didn't know where he was because they were that exhausted.
We were having a bad time, Christian.
And so they got there, and then the judge decided to no rep them and then asked them to move the bag. Now that worm doesn't move easily. It has to be lifted off the ground. The entire thing has to be, you can't drag it either.
With all 4 people. Like you can't just have one person. Like Jackson was trying to slide it forward by himself.
And then getting yelled at because he was touching the
and
red
we were
straps,
in
which you're not allowed to.
We were in second in that workout when we hit that 4th round.
In that heat.
In the heat. And just to watch them get no ripped, and then the athletes, and then the athlete not knowing, the team not knowing what the judge was trying to tell them. Only one athlete figured it out, Jackson, but the other athletes couldn't really understand. You guys were struggling to do it. Finally, the judge just gave in and said, okay, go.
After like a minute and letting everybody else run by.
And then 2 to 3 teams finished in between that time. So you see things like that. And those are hard pills to swallow is when you're looking at it. And that is the frustration of having human involvement in the judging process. I mean, it's human error. The judge made a mistake.
Well, that was not a briefed standard. That has been a traditional standard. I think it becomes the problem of standards inconsistently applied across heats, across lanes, and maybe making the judge do too much judging.
Yeah.
So there's really forward and back, like half in and half out. That box is not really a big issue, and you probably can just not.
You guys were like,
I like
behind.
I really like what I like what you said there. Making the judges do too much judging.
They're counting so many different reps, right? They're watching 4 people. They're looking for 4 people to all have locked out their knee at some point in time, which we were also getting no reps on. But that's actually really hard to tell.
That is a really tough
4
thing
people,
to do.
4 different kneecaps.
Yeah, you're watching. Well, not even just the knees, because they wanted to see like the hips and knees extend as the bag came over, and that's like you're looking at 8 different joints,
and it's happening all at different times.
Yes,
right. Like especially for
different
us,
levers, different heights.
We're not as clean as some of the top teams that are really, really clean on that worm. So we also were making our judge make a judgment call, but you can have the standards be a little easier maybe in that case. But really the sandbag hold was the worst. That hold was also a lot of briefing in the brief that we had in the morning, a lot of notes, and then definitely inconsistently applied across
all heats,
all lanes. And that's almost something that then should just not be a hold and be a carry. Or something.
I feel like, I love the fact that they brought in a sandbag carry, like a bear hug hold. Like I really like that as an implement or a test.
It's a good core test.
It's a great core test.
A different core test than we get.
But from a judging standpoint, especially in that thing, I think what would have been a better movement or static hold would have been an overhead hold.
Right.
Like just put a barbell overhead and just support it in a support, because there was not a lot of overhead work
right. Other than quarterfinals, there was a paragraph of like things that they were saying about the hold. Your knee, really they wanted your knees straight and you're not too back, but you could be back a little bit, and it couldn't touch your thighs even like a little bit. That's hard to tell from far away. And
so here's the issue with that.
But great, I agree with you. Great idea. I love it. It was so hard.
But I love your point though, that so you've got a brand, essentially a new movement for the teams, and then you're putting a lot of description around it.
Yeah.
And you're asking these athletes to hold those standards, and then you're asking judges to interpret the instructions you just gave them.
Because CrossFit's probably hoping if we are, very precise and like giving you a lot of detail that will help. But sometimes that actually doesn't help, because then it adds a lot of degrees of freedom to how the movement can be
a lot
judged.
of different interpretations to it.
Yeah, and I like what you say. You and I have talked about this, Jamie, in the past, is really coming up with stuff that takes the judge out of it.
Foolproof.
Right. And on the flip side, I know
so it minimizes the judging.
Pooping on that as like a judged standard. But what they also did was they used a second judge. That judge that was doing the sandbag judging just had to hold their hand up, and that let the person counting the double unders that was happening during that time know that they were counting double unders. And that's a very clear signal for them, because that can be quite hard to know.
That was cool. I like that. I like that. But what I didn't like is that they changed it from the last week's semifinal, the week before semifinal.
Did they?
They had the person holding their hand up right next to the sandbag. So if you're doing double unders and then you see that they're maybe lost the point, the hand comes down, you can see it as a double under. But
interesting.
This week they had that hand holder behind the double under. So it's like, okay, the counter's in front. You can't hear who's counting anyway, so you might as well see when to stop if the hand comes down.
It's interesting.
And of course it's so loud, and you start yelling at the person counting. Where are we?
So our vote would be for one of two things. I like the idea of a carry for that sandbag.
It was harder on the field of
like the individual event with the sandbag carry at the final. That was an awesome event.
You let them carry it however they want.
You watched Pat Fellner be full like Weekend at Bernie at the last carry.
Right. So carry just takes the judging out of it.
It was too tough on the field of play with the worm clean and jerks.
Well, right.
Love the hold. But again, I think it's getting to the thing of thinking about the movements and how hard is it to judge, how much room for interpretation, because we're athletes, we're going to ride a line.
Game it for sure.
Like, we're wayward children. And how much pressure does getting that right put on the placement for a top team?
Even picking the bag up and lifting it over an obstacle.
Right.
Back and forth.
I mean, like I said, I love the sandbag bear hug hold.
Sure.
I mean, we program it. It's a great test of fitness. It's a functional movement pattern.
Instead of doing 150 GHDs.
But let's not.
That's much better.
But just don't make it so damn hard to judge.
Yeah.
Or just let people be wayward children. And I'd say like the one way to cheat it, and I know someone, not cheat it, one way to perhaps be smart about it, and I know someone who did this, hats off to them. You do the old strongman technique of setting the bag on top of your leather belt. So it's
on the belt buckle. Yeah. But that's if you could get it up that high.
If you can get it up that high.
Because it was not a heavy, it's not a light bag.
No.
But 5,200 is heavy.
But a sandbag, look, the way I look at it is a sandbag hold should not be complex.
No. What they should have done is
a snatch should be complex to judge.
Yeah. What they should have said was keep the bag above the waist.
Yeah.
Any way necessary. It could be at the shoulder, because that just means you've got to do more work to get it in a placement.
Leaning full back is still really hard and taxing.
Yeah. It's
anyway.
Yeah. So that's
all right.
That's that one.
Overhead hold, dude. And it's not
the hold would have been
a sandbag hold has already gotten too much of us. Not alone they got too much judging, but it got like a sandbag hold should not be that fucking difficult.
No, it shouldn't be.
The whole thing shouldn't take away from a team.
It's taking the learnings from this and rethinking then what your standards are and trying to make it simpler, 100%. Straightforward, or just allowing people to do dumb stuff. You allowed it in the carry. It's just easier to judge. You're either over the line or you're not over the line. It's harder to judge, is a millimeter of this bag touching my thigh?
Yeah.
Which brings us to the next workout that
next day
we had a judging issue.
Event 3.
Yeah, which is event 3. And this is a gauntlet style workout, and this was one of the most heartbreaking workouts for a team as a affiliate owner I've ever had to watch.
Yeah.
The only other one that was almost equally painful and heart-wrenching was in the CrossFit Games of 2011, I believe it was, with the Diablo and Añejo team.
Yeah.
And it was gauntlet style. And the athlete got stuck on the shouldered overhead.
Yeah.
And was getting no rep and couldn't complete them, and the rest of the team couldn't go. And we went from second place overall. The last workout before the final day, second place overall, dropped to 7th, and we couldn't participate because they had a cut line, 16 cut line. And so we couldn't participate on the last day in workouts that would have been great. But that was equally. So gauntlet workouts are really dangerous. And the gauntlet workouts are really dangerous because if your athlete doesn't finish the work, any athlete that's behind that athlete cannot compete. They're out there done. They have to stop.
Happened in 13 too with the rope climbs. We had our guy.
That's right.
In the beginning to hit a point of failure, but that comes down to a performance thing, not a standards thing.
That's right. Well, right. But either way, gauntlets. My point being, gauntlets are tough. And in this one, the gauntlet was tough because the judge was inhibiting the athlete from performing the workout simply because the judge completely misunderstood the rep scheme.
Yeah, I'm still not sure. I mean, I
don't know what happened.
I think our interpretation was that it seemed like our judge was requiring 2 reps per rep, but it could have also been that our judge was not communicating no reps that were being given.
She did do a no rep sign like 2 or 3 times.
Okay, but not 15.
Not 15.
It was clear. I was told.
Oh, okay.
That the judge believed it was 30 reps per leg
instead of 30 total for the first person.
Total. Yeah. And that's an easy mistake to make.
Well,
hang on a second.
No, hang on a second. There was 2 different rep schemes depending on which pair you were.
That's true.
Right. So just to give the audience, anybody's paying attention at this point, but the athlete came out and had to run 400 meters on an assault runner, then immediately go to pistols, and it was 15.
No, it was bench press.
I'm sorry, the bench press, dumbbell bench press, and dumbbell bench press was heavy for the girls.
Yeah, it was a 60-pound
dumbbell for women,
for 15 on the first pair,
and 90 for the gentlemen.
That's right. And then so she came out and she crushed it, and which put her in about second place by the time she hit the pistols. She was in second place in the heat on the pistols, and we were stoked, and she was stoked, and her pistols are good.
Yeah,
she's got pistols. And she immediately got into her pistol. She's supposed to do 15 on one side, then 15 on the other leg. And she got to 15, and she asked the judge, or I think she got to 16.
She put her foot down and then got a no rep because the rule was you couldn't put your foot down. If you put your foot down, it didn't start from the beginning, like at the games last year, but you didn't get that rep.
Right.
You couldn't accumulate reps by putting your foot down.
Yeah.
So she gets a no rep, but she asked, how many do I have left? And the judge said, you have 8 more. And she was dumbfounded. She couldn't figure out in her head why she had 8 more. And then, asking for clarity on a no rep, the judge indicates, well, there's no reps. You're fine. And so she kept going and ended up
because there's nothing you can do.
There's nothing.
Well, that doesn't occur to you to do it.
And that's when she started getting confused, and I could see it on her face. And she did 15 more. So she did a total of 30 on that leg. Then switched legs and started, and that's when you were next to me and you were counting the reps. And Jamie Lee got to 20, and he's like, what the fuck? Like, why is she 20?
This is the benefit. I mean, not a great experience, obviously, but this is a different experience than a junior team would have. Yeah. They wouldn't know that they were even allowed to try to get the attention of the head judge on the field. Like oftentimes you just aren't aware that is something you are allowed to do, that you don't have to just keep doing.
But that's costly on time.
In this tight time, workout had a super tight time cap.
Because
we weren't going to make the time cap.
She has 3 athletes behind her that she wants to, she feels obligated to get off the floor.
She feels pressure.
But the time spent trying to do the extra reps, which is actually really tough to stay off your feet for 30 unbroken pistols.
Oh, she was smoked.
And the time spent arguing or trying to get a head judge, the conversation between the head judge and the judge. The head judge was talking to our judge, and neither were looking at Emily while she was hoping
she was actually
needing to still do.
He was deeply into the rules sheet, explaining the rep scheme to her,
which is the wrong time.
It added about 4 minutes to her, like the time that she had tested it at.
What was that?
It was about 4 extra minutes, I think, that she was waiting.
Yeah.
Which on that, when you had 4 minutes per person, really, if you're going to make the time cap, which again, we weren't, but we would have gotten a lot further.
We
left one athlete out there not working
entirely
that didn't even touch.
And I didn't even get to
reps.
kick up for handstand walks, pirouettes.
So when she finally was freed from the jail cell of pistols,
tired and demoralized.
She literally was looking up in the stand, red faced, and literally the saddest face I've seen on a CrossFit athlete I think ever.
Because you're bearing that alone.
She was not,
and she was the first.
She was not crying. She was gulping, like sobbing internally and kind of externally.
And this workout it's an accuracy.
Yeah.
It's all about accuracy.
Yeah.
And if you're at all blown up or emotional or like mentally off your game because of what somebody has done to you.
She did get a no rep too on the pirouette where I think
it was really close.
She said,
I'm coming to that. Hang on a second. I'm coming to that. You're jumping ahead. So we're
all fired up.
She got her composure. She did her first pirouette, which was awesome. She did her second pirouette, and then and she got no rep on one pirouette, but she came back, did it real quick. It was quick down up. And then her third pirouette, she just wanted to be done. She wanted to be off that floor so bad. And she did her third pirouette, and she ran to the marker and just collapsed on the marker, looking up at the fans. Just like, what did I do? She had her hands up and she was just literally bawling. Meanwhile, her judge behind her had no repped her on that last pirouette.
Didn't say anything.
Didn't come get her. It was just standing there waiting for her. And we're screaming at her to go back. She didn't, from the stands, she couldn't tell what we were telling her.
Emily said she was looking at her hand. She said she did not touch the line. But I think what happened, because I feel like it was close. It was the middle, and there was hash marks. I think she touched the hash mark, and she confused that with
the judge.
A line.
The judge confused that.
Yeah. And
So at the end of the day, she got done, and then I was able to grab Adrian Bosman and get his attention. And he went over and talked to the head judge, and he followed up with me.
Also,
yeah, he followed up with me and said that his team was professional and they were going to look at it, and they knew that something was wrong, and they were going to make whatever adjustments needed to be made. Emily was distraught. I mean, she literally wanted to quit CrossFit right there, which I would have too. I would have been. Thank goodness it was her. Like, she
failing
kept her
alone sucks when you're not actually failing.
And consider the fact that she put a lot of time in improving that skill.
Yes,
that pirouette.
The pirouette.
And she has made all kinds of progress with that skill. And the fact that she wasn't able to showcase it because she went out there on the floor with an intention of having fun. And I mean, the fact that a judge was unfamiliar with the actual rep scheme of the workout kind of took that away.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, the appeal, and Beth was team captain, went and made the appeal, and it came back with they gave us they scored us for reps because it was over the time cap, so they gave us additional reps. They gave us 6 additional reps, which was essentially the number of pistols that Beth had remaining in her work, because she was the athlete behind.
And I had actually done an extra rep than I needed on the first set because she didn't count to 10 appropriately. And I put my foot down and had to do 2 more.
Yeah.
So unbelievable. So
it just felt right.
Yeah.
But yes, only
she was given 6 reps. And the reason why they didn't give her more, the pirouettes, and then give any essentially what they needed to give us was about 3 minutes worth of work.
Of credit.
Right. Which has to be translated into reps, but they didn't want to do that because they didn't have proof that Beth had the skill set to do the pirouettes. They didn't know whether or not she had the capacity to do pirouettes, which my argument would be, well, why not drag her ass right down there in front of the judges table and have Beth do pirouettes and go, oh, okay, yeah, we can give you those reps.
Yeah. But
they didn't, and I understand. The CrossFit does have a process, an appeal process. Back in the day, there was no appeal process.
I know it's nice it is nice to see that this is more, I guess maybe football does this, but I'm more familiar with tennis.
It's a step in the right direction.
Smart. I mean, strength of region and appeals process were 2 things that I think were smart moves for them.
Yeah.
For this phase.
I think there's definitely some refining they can do with this appeal process. And, like you said, like if you're an appeal in the situation where it's like, well, how many reps? Have some kind of a formula, whether it's what's the pace, the average pace of the round, let's accredit that. And in order to do that, you have to show that you have the ability to do those skills. It doesn't take that hard to go over to the mat in the warm-up area, do a pirouette, show us you have the ability to do a pirouette. Okay.
Or have a separate stage
now
where
Christian,
you're doing this.
Go on the true form or the assault runner, run a 400. What is your time? Can you do the bench press? Okay, let's build. I mean, like they spent all day. I know they were busy with other appeals. That's that's a factor, but they had all day, and we were there. Like we could have made.
I think
those
people don't realize
adjustments.
how many appeals go in. I know Jackson didn't.
There's a lot.
Okay, one, having appeals and have it publicized is really helpful,
Yes.
especially to newer athletes to understand that could be even a thing. I think people don't realize that there are mistakes that are made.
Mm-hmm.
I think, again, thinking about what are the bottleneck movements in a workout and putting really, really good judges on it, or really, really briefing it, or having simpler standards are things to do. I think for events like this, where you might not get to see everybody do something, definitely having like a side stage where you go put people through things just to like check in as part of the review process. Or have judges that are counters.
Yeah.
That it's up to you to hit the movement standards, and there's going to be major and minor penalties, just like in the open. Or I think for the athletes, it might be right for them to choose sometimes to not listen to their judge
and advance
and file an appeal.
After
I think
the fact.
Añejo Greer maybe did that in her region and was an absolute gangster for doing that. But that's which I don't love that, because
it doesn't look good for
it doesn't look good.
It doesn't look
that's
good.
That's a good point.
But
it doesn't look good for the sport.
That was I not trying. I know that I just said that after talking about Añejo Greer. I think she'd made the right choice.
Yeah.
But I think, like, again, making other choices upstream or downstream. So upstream in terms of movement standards, how things are judged, and downstream for things where you do have these bottlenecks that really, really matter. And a no rep matters, having some sort of stage or some sort of, I'll get eyes on to see if you have the capacity.
This kind of reminds me back last year at the games with Yvonne and the muscle ups. Right. Remember the world's longest muscle up she had because the judge wouldn't tell? That was like one of those scenarios where if you're an athlete and you're reaching that standard, don't feel like you need to oblige that judge. Finish the workout and then go through the appeal process, because they can't add reps to it, as we now know, but they can at least say, okay, that was good, so we will give you that credit that you did.
That's right.
And again, here that pistol standard is tougher, right?
It is.
It's you're standing on
like
one
the
side.
Standard.
I love it.
I love the
again,
test.
and I actually don't think it's a hard standard to watch. Although they did adjust it like week to week with like some weird, like you can't put your foot behind. So I think they probably could do a little less standard,
a little more consistency.
Just allow people to do whatever they need to do, so long as they're not touching things. Pirouettes, also high value movement. So I think for those ones, I agree. Just sort of hard, taxing, high value movements. Maybe you don't always listen to your judge.
I like I think the overarching theme for CrossFit should be remove judging from CrossFit.
As much as
possible. The judges should not be the deciding factor in the outcome of a workout.
And they're always going to get things wrong. And and we, the athletes, are always going to be pushing a line.
Yeah.
And also, I don't think video review is the end all be all of things, for a few reasons. One, I'm an avid soccer watcher. People hate VAR.
Right.
But also, if you think about, I think, I'm a training think tank fan. And they had an athlete, Jake Berman, who got a major penalty on a quarterfinal workout when it was determined that he was not meeting depth on video for a front squat. That video was front on and 50 feet away. So what video reviewer at that, you know what I mean? And I don't know what the video, they also
comes back down to like interpretation of whoever's reviewing.
I don't know what videos they saw for Emily's, because the review people said, well, it looked like she had some no reps in there. And I don't know what angle that was at.
She had somebody that sent me a video. She shared a video with me that was from the stand. So frontal plane, and you see her hip crease. You see her knee disappear her hip crease.
And I know
there's no question that she's not hitting depth.
It wasn't.
Or control.
And I know we were talking about like Danny Spiegel and her leg morphology. Emily is a longer athlete as well. So it's not as clear as some people with a slightly different leg look. She's definitely hitting depth, but I can understand why people, but again, I don't know where that video, angle was.
Well, it comes back to what Jackson was saying. When you have any kind of appeal or you challenge something, it's on whatever the challenge is, that they're not allowed to go back and pull something else out. So the question was, where did the extra reps come from?
It was a misinterpretation.
It was 100%.
Yeah. So, but the point I'm making is that CrossFit needs to remove it needs to be thinking, and I'm sure they are. I'm probably saying this and they're already thinking this. Is like, how do we get judging out of CrossFit? Which means, do we change the movements to become things that don't need to be judged and only need to be counted? Like
and
you and I
we know they
about.
have, you know,
Right.
with the sandbag move. I mean, look at the rest of that workout. You're probably not going to mess up counting 400 meters on an assault runner.
That's right.
They made the dumbbell bench press easier. It was just touching bells to torso. There was no rule about elbows, which means 90, I could absolutely cheat that movement. But pirouettes too, really simple. You got to turn, don't touch the lines. I mean, you know,
and I think the next level of that, well, there's two next levels. I think the intermediate level is, what I believe is that the judges that are coming to semifinals and to the games need to be paid professionals.
100%.
And I'd carve out budget, take away budget from the workout floor that they had there for the spectators, take that away. Take away, like, there's a lot of ancillary stuff that they have that they could take that budget, because the fans just want to see a really good competition. And this is a participatory sport, meaning the fans, they do CrossFit. The athletes, like, they're CrossFitters. Let's put the emphasis there on the performance on the field.
The judges are all there all day.
Yeah.
And they're getting yelled at.
Well, not only that. That's the other thing, is that they went to 20. Here's where the issues happen for us. Not the sandbag bone, but as soon as you go to 20 judges, now you got 20. It's not your top 10 judges anymore. And granted, in the later heats,
it makes it easier on them from, like, you only need to focus on one thing over and over again.
I'm sure the best athletes had the best judges, right? So ultimately, and that's what I tell our athletes: hey, you want the best judges? You better be in the last heat.
Yeah.
We did see that the judge, I believe, that was counting her pistols, did come back, but I do believe
came back a few times. She was judging in the individuals in the final.
She was.
Well, I think initially they pulled her out. She was going to judge maybe Justin Medeiros on the first event, and they pulled her out just to probably reset and discuss, because she's probably competent. Yeah. She just made a mistake.
Yeah. So let's pay those people. Let's put them through a course. Let's professionalize it. Let's have a union of judges, if you will. You need to unionize, but let's have an organization similar to what we did in Grid, and that was powerful.
I think maybe I believe it was Brent Fikowski, talking about, like, with PFAA, whatever. Yeah. Sorry, PFAA. That's it. That you put out movements and movement standards early, and you have videos and pictures and documentation on them. And if you want to add a new movement, it has to be scored as kind of like, is this a really, like, nuanced, tough to judge movement? And you need to give, or like a ring handstand push-up, which obviously they, briefed not at the games, which is great. But if it's something like that's really high skill and tough, that you have to send it out even earlier and have, more documentation around it. So that's, like, another way that doesn't just help the athletes prepare, but it also can help judges to prepare. Because there was, pirouettes.
Well,
sandbag hold, the pistols on the one leg, the seated legless rope climbs. There were probably other movements, wall facing handstand push-ups, like things that were quite new. So high degree of possibility for mistakes.
At one of the tenets of CrossFit is that we fail at the limits of our experience.
Yep.
And that holds true for the athletes, and it holds true for the judges. And if they've got no experience judging sandbag holds or worm clean and jerks,
and if they're set up for failure,
or pistols, right, that you're if they haven't had much experience, that's where the problems are going to happen. And we saw that happen. So I guess that would be the interim step. And then I think the final step the ultimate resolution of this will be with technology. I don't know that that'll ever come, or that,
but you just look at the VAR in soccer. It probably helps in some ways and gets things wrong sometimes.
I have an idea how technology can make a major increase in just the drain on our judges. You have people standing there looking at a treadmill, and they're flipping a switch for the thing. Why isn't that already on a computer, like a screen, a monitor? But it comes back down to those. Right. I understand the money, but
equipment failure, money, more things to set up.
So, like, there's already the data coming to one monitor. What's wrong with those companies kind of, to be a part of the games, like you need to be able to provide some way for us to show the crowd where it's at, and also the other athletes.
Yeah.
But then what that does is that takes that judge off of that.
Right.
And then it kind of, it doesn't over drain and draw on the resources from the judges. So then they get a little bit more rest in between, and there's not so drawn thin.
I would also love to see more racing
back to the
in CrossFit.
What's that?
I'd like to see more racing.
I wish it was on a track.
Spectators would love to see a race, not just in that event, but
on the 800 for the individuals. That would have been so much fun to watch.
Yeah. I think it's just a funner event to be able to have more races come into the sport.
But that's where we see it mostly at the games.
Totally.
Yeah. No, but there's nothing wrong with having it at the semifinals.
Mm-hmm.
Races are fun.
I agree.
I have no idea what happened on event 4.
Event 4.
That's the box jump and dumbbell snatch and machines where you were just back and forth. And there was one thing that they flipped over.
The card.
The card. I mean, you had no idea where anyone was,
from the stands. That was actually helpful because you could see who else, like, because you had no idea what heat or what round they were on,
right?
But every time they would flip it, you would know, like, it's either 4th, 5th round.
But that's a case of, like, it's nice to have a race.
Yes.
And that was not a race watch.
Yeah.
That, I think, that's a huge, I think it would be a huge addition to the regionals. People enjoy the races.
Mm-hmm.
You know who's Rogue Invitational has done a good job of creating races.
Yeah.
I mean, test 2 with the muscle ups and the thrusters, it was really, I mean, while you didn't know if they were on the first or the second pair, which maybe they could have made it, the barbells move every time.
Mm-hmm.
I think floor was the limiter there. But that was a really fun race because we started in the back and I could tell where we were, and as we were picking people off, I kind of knew what was happening. So I enjoyed that.
That's what Tony Budding said about grid. That was so cool. It was like, you got to be able to leave, go get a beer at the concession stand, come back, sit down, and understand who's winning and who's losing. And I don't want to go back to him, but Andrew Hiller did that video clip, a really cool video clip about him sitting in the stands, just randomly sitting in the stands and talking to the woman that was there watching her son-in-law compete and had no idea what was going on. And he explained the whole event to her. And
I did that on day 2.
And by the end, by the end of his explanation, she was like, oh, and she was jumping up and down and excited because she figured it out.
That's
but
awesome.
It took someone to explain it.
Yeah.
And I think you can create tests of fitness as a race. It's a challenge for programming. There's some limitations on programming, and especially with the venue, but I think you can create it. I think that's an opportunity to maybe pull the judges out, some judges out.
Yeah. I think, and also just with how many judges, I mean, I understand, like, you want them to just kind of focus on that one skill,
right?
But if you have judges out there that stay with the team throughout the whole event, there's more accountability to that person. Like, there's more responsibility, which is another reason why they should be paid for it. But then you also, there's a connection from the team to the judge versus, like, we lost that person. Who knows where they went? Did they even talk to them during the appeal process?
It was that was a weird experience. I'm used to the standard of, well, there's less and less time at the start or the end of events. Fair if they're keeping actually a really good tight schedule, where you would always shake their hands and introduce yourself. And I only did that to maybe less than 50% of the judges, which to me feels rude and not right.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the things I enjoyed about competing back in the day, is you had a chance to kind of say hi to everybody. What do you expect from me today?
No, exactly. You might have a little bit of time to check in on some of the standards, and especially for the ones that you need to get right.
Yeah.
What do you need to see from me?
Well, that's always been what we've told our athletes. Yeah. Go walk out to the judge, have a conversation with the judge. But now you don't get time, and it's almost frowned upon that the athlete make contact with the judge before the event. And there's room here.
There's a lot of room.
And look, CrossFit is
still so young.
CrossFit is always interested in being better every single year. They really are. And they had in their defense, in the CrossFit Games defense, they've had a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
They've had 4 years of like massive budget cuts to massive budget input. Like they've gone to both ends of the spectrum, and now they're new to the semifinals. They had to, a hell of a lot more event planning and coordination and broadcast stuff.
Also trying to make a stage, which was regionals, be financially viable.
Yeah, right. Trying to make it financially viable. I don't know if it was, but it's because it's expensive.
I can tell they're making decisions that are hopefully supportive of that.
To that end, there are people that were really upset that there are certain heats that weren't broadcast and different heat times. And I want to, every person that when I hear it, I send it, I make sure I comment on it, because I think most of us don't have an understanding of how expensive all of that is. And I was talking to Aaron Kelly down on the floor, and he said that the guys weren't allowed to put in overtime, but overtime was a huge
thing before,
huge cost. For media production. So if you've got a budget for media production and you've got your announcers there, you've got your floor announcers, you've got cameramen and all of that. If you, and a lot of the times it's union based. If you go over that 8 hours, it starts to get very expensive, especially on a holiday weekend.
Yeah.
And your cost can instantly double and triple just by adding, a couple of hours more of production, because you've got people that are doing the graphics. You've got people that are doing the replay. You got people that are doing the lane changes and all those people and you got a TV truck that you're renting. Like the whole thing is a massive undertaking.
I think, because we went back to the house a couple of times and it was those events that weren't being broadcasted, but it was still being streamed through the CrossFit podcast.
Yeah, that was cool.
Which
that was a last minute decision, and they're gonna.
I think that was a great decision, and that might be something that could help save some money in the future.
Well, they are, and they're already because they did that. Brian, I talked to Brian Friend, and Brian Friend said that was something that he and Chase just did. And then CrossFit's like, oh, that's cool. Let's continue that. And they're gonna fly. They're flying Chase out to Germany to continue the practice. I was at breakfast on Sunday with Kim and Mel, and Mel, we were talking. I said, people were upset that they couldn't see the Añejo team. We were in the first heat, and we were in
my butt made feed a couple times.
And that is within the CrossFit community, people want to see their affiliate. And I said, you and I set up every day. Or every time we do this podcast, we set up 3 remote cameras. They're just little cameras on a stick, and they're 4K cameras. They're pretty damn good cameras. And I can't help but think, why not on the railing, just like, have an elevated camera on each lane and
have somebody flip it from back to back.
Well, yeah, no, not only that, you put it up on a website and you pick the lane you want to watch.
Yeah.
I think there's probably there's some coaches that would pay for that.
Yeah, right? I think that's a great idea.
So that's the other part of it, right? Is people would pay for that. And so Mel said it because why would you have one per lane? Well, because you got 10 lanes, you got 10. He goes, why not just have 3 cameras with each camera covers 3 lanes?
Yeah.
Like, oh well, shit.
Well, that's kind of like that, and that's how the podcast was. Like they had I don't know, probably 4 or 5 different cameras that they would kind of pan back and forth depending on what part of the field was. But the thing is, you can at least watch the competition when they're actually out there with the camera on a team that just finished and they're following that one athlete or the team that just finished after the event. You don't know what's going on the field. You don't know what's like.
It's the difference between trying to tell a tight story.
Yes.
Versus
or sharing
just allowing people to view.
Yes.
That's right.
Like a fish.
And
that's a great point.
And because it's a participatory sport, we have our affiliate, family. We want to see our team. I've heard this over and over again over the years, and I don't like it. Literally, every year during ski season, I can go to magnify.com and I can look at all the different webcams for all the damn freeways. I've been doing this for 10 years.
You need a new hobby.
I know. And every time I do it, I'm like, why do we not just have something like this? And it doesn't have to be glossy. And the broadcast, just pipe the broadcast, whatever the floor announcers are talking about. And then I go, oh, I want to see lane 6. Okay, I want to see lane 5. Or I want to see lanes 1 through 3. Or you could have 4 cameras all the way around the venue and just go, okay, I want to see this,
And from the I think what classic Brent Fikowski move. I think for the event 1, he went and looked at like speeds and splits for other people to the best that he could.
So went back and watched.
And kind of figured out what his splits would need to be to kind of be winning essentially, or where he could kind of what he could expect.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of camps, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of camps that do. I know Training Think Tank have a spreadsheet of, movement rep per movement. I think you guys do as well, right? Like it's just a thing that coaches love to do.
How long does it take to do 15 snatches?
Yep.
I can't help but think that wouldn't be just an easy idea.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't want to get the content out there. Maybe they don't want to see someone doing a crappy
and then you can have way more fun fantasy CrossFit. I mean, think about soccer. I mean, again, soccer fan. There's so many people that sit and watch full games and put in, like manually put in information and data that then you can track your players and kind of understand things about. Missed opportunity.
Soccer's a little more advanced.
Yeah, they're also wearing wearables the whole time.
Yes.
Like they wear things that are tracking them.
Which comes back to the technology aspect.
Yeah, no, how cool would that be? That's the next. But again, Aaron said to me, he goes, at one point in time, he goes, there's 250,000 viewers on the West Regional broadcast.
That's awesome.
And Aaron said to me, they should just charge them $5 or $10. Now they'd lose probably maybe 50,000, maybe 100,000, but they
would gain some financial resources.
That's still $1 million. That's $1 million they didn't have.
Yeah.
It is tough to switch people from
a paywall, putting a paywall on there.
If the default was, if what you expect is that's a really, from my neuroscience PhD, that is a tough switch to make.
Yeah.
For the event, the whole event though, I do want to know if you guys thought it was the right test for teams.
Oh yeah.
Or what your kind of like events as a whole, or each test, or what tests were good or bad.
I have some thoughts on that.
I thought it was okay. I think the time domains were all super similar.
Classic.
I would have loved to see.
I think they were shorter than normal for
shorter,
teams.
but they were more consistent across the competition, right? Like there was no like really short. There was no really. I mean, there was the one long one in the beginning.
I feel like teams tends to be like 25 minutes.
Yeah,
because they will have all the men go and then all the women go, or partners or whatever.
Yeah. But as far as like the movement patterns, I think it was very heavy on the frontal plane, or just like the shoulders and pressing in the first 2 days within like the ring. Well, I'm thinking from the individuals. I'm sorry. From the teams, I thought
it was really calves and back.
Heavy calves. You're right. You had the 800-meter run, 300 double unders, the
sandbag
first day,
hold,
and then the second day was
worm clean and jerks.
Yeah, which is also very
thrusters.
Cozy.
Box jumps,
a lot of box
dumbbell,
jumps with another
snatch,
run. It was weird. It's weird to see the run come out twice.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably the first time in like the current era.
I don't recall like on a treadmill. I don't recall ever seeing.
Yeah, I can't remember like the old regionals where maybe it was quarterfinals and like you just had like a set of events. Maybe there was 2 runs there where everybody was kind of doing a bit of their own thing.
I wouldn't be upset if we went through another remote qualifying round just to see that way, kind of bring the field down, which then maybe make it easier to
that's
judge.
Interesting. Yeah,
I do think
another round of qualifying.
Whereas for individuals, there was some room for some point swings. Literally, Sydney Wells, I think, took last on an event and still went to the games. There's just such fall off on the teams. Like I'm very happy to go, but no scores that we were putting in were going to take points away from the top. And the top then really, again, getting to judging standards, it really matters for them if a judge does something wrong, because that can keep them from the games, because I think the top 8 teams all had all of their placings in the top 15.
Yeah.
So my only comment on this, and this is something that it echoes other comments that were out there from the barbell spin guys too, said the same thing, is that there's not much difference in the quarterfinals results and the semifinals results.
Super similar.
Super similar. And so did we, was it just a validation of what happened, what went down in quarterfinals? Kind of like, so Victus had 3 teams and they're in the top 10 in quarterfinals. Those 3 teams also made the CrossFit Games. Diablo moved up 1 spot. So meaning the open and the quarterfinals were very good tests. Or
granted, we also had some issues with the judging.
Well, no, I understand.
So,
yeah, so they would have moved up over
they moved up a little bit more.
Or the test didn't change enough.
That's true.
Or the test
we
didn't
had
change
heavy
enough.
cleans.
Right.
Yeah.
In both.
There was no snatch. I mean, like
know,
you had
like
the clean and jerk. Yeah, there was. I mean, some variance in the test.
And it was the same within the men and women. There's this year, and I don't. One of the statisticians will probably do the math on it, but I think there's the least amount of variance this year. And I don't know whether that's a good thing about the quarterfinals, or is
we won't know,
or is that a bad thing,
or is that let it play out for the season and year over year?
Right? Is that a bad thing about semifinals? Like, should the semifinals have been different tests that challenged different work capacities or different modal domains than the
different time zones?
Different,
time domains.
Time domains
would have been a
different time domains. But that's time domains are tough though.
They are tough to run in a day where you have 40 teams and 120 individuals.
That's
right. I understand why they made the choices that they made.
I like what Jamie Lee said is maybe, and it's hard for viewing too, but I like what Jamie Lee said is maybe there's another level of online testing, but
I don't know if the tests were tough enough for the top teams. Like, I was not particularly worried about.
They didn't really have any heavy barbells besides the cleans, which was just a test of a max lift. Essentially, it wasn't like, can you do a heavy bar in a workout?
Right. There weren't a lot of gymnastics bottlenecks, which I realize maybe people won't agree with me on.
I mean, you could
got
say
lots of rest, and you could do bar muscle ups, which are easier. And at most, we did
the rope climb we did
see some athletes that couldn't do
a bottleneck.
Yeah.
But I think again, if you had fewer
from the top
teams, it wouldn't be. It was only a 12-foot climb, and frankly, I thought that it was not difficult.
It's almost like they programmed it.
Good at it, and also they had regular rope climbs when we had a bunch of those in quarterfinals.
Yeah. Like, I think that there's a lot of rope climbs, but I think that I lost train of thought. I forget it. Go ahead.
Well, I also don't know if we needed to do all the box jumps and the dumbbells could have been heavier. Again. I'm going to complain about this, but I'm not actually complaining about it because I don't know what's going to happen throughout the whole season or year over year and what the kind of long-term vision is. I'm just thinking of it from like I don't know what the intended stimulus or intensity or the goal from the weekend and the movements were and whether they've achieved it or not. Like, I won't know that, but it didn't feel difficult to me. Like, I was, other than the first event, which was an absolute beatdown for me and it was horrible.
Yeah.
Event over event, I felt better and better and better. And I actually felt better driving home than I did driving the 6 hours down. Like, my body felt fine.
It's almost like they were programming for the 40 teams to participate versus which of the 40 teams are in a place that can really advance on to that next level.
And for those top 10 teams, then for event 2 and 4, I would say the thruster muscle up and the box jump and dumbbell snatch, it was speed of reps because it was
cycle
tight.
Rate, sure.
It was all about pushing your cycle rate and kind of performing.
Jamie, I think you're right. And the reason is a lot of these teams had to travel really far to get there, and it's very expensive.
Yeah.
And so I think they want to create, I think CrossFit is certainly thinking about, look, we got to create an experience for 40 teams, and we've got to determine, who the, top 10 fittest teams are.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, when you make it in one area where people are coming from, like, CrossFit Kinesis was out there in Nebraska, that's an expensive venture to bring.
And probably not a direct flight.
No, that's right. It's not a direct flight. So it's a big, and so then you think, well, they can only do 3 workouts and the other 3 workouts they can't even do. It's tough. It's, like CrossFit Games has a big job to do with all of this. So that, like, in their defense too, like
getting it right is hard.
We can nitpick the hell out of it, but because there's just so many things.
Positive side of this is that I also liked that they brought the gymnastics to the teams. I think, like, the year of regionals, Nate, with the strict muscle ups, I thought we were going to get.
We were practicing them too.
I was practicing. I was happy about it. But they did bring us the pirouettes.
That was cool.
The dumbbell bench.
The dumbbell bench was heavy. They
even brought out the sandbag. It wasn't in the best setting, but it made
us do the pistols, just like the individuals. Oftentimes they change the event a lot for the teams to your point, knowing that there's a lot of drop off in the athlete that shows up on a like a lower team than a top individual. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
But so I did appreciate having the harder movements still show up, you know, still seated legless, still wall facing, kind of all those movements. So I like bringing that. I just don't know if it was that hard probably for the top teams. I'd be curious to know. I was trying to reflect if I thought it was harder or easier than previous regionals I had done.
Unless CrossFit can find some incredible event promoter that wants to try and turn this thing into a for-profit thing, I think CrossFit is probably bound to doing this, and we'll get better at it, and we'll continue to, and they're going to take it as an expense, because I know they're not making money at it.
This is the first year for BOS programming. Yes. I love BOS. I know I'm really not being, I'm trying to be, I hope it's coming across as questioning and also being supportive of the changes that I'm seeing.
Yes.
But I think BOS also, is someone who doesn't want to just beat everybody into submission with thousands and thousands of reps. It's not about just surviving the weekend. It is about having to push your limits and go really hard.
Yes.
And still have tough tests. So I guess, maybe it's also an adjustment of my own expectations, having been someone that's been doing this for 10 years or more. And I just don't know yet, because we're at the beginning.
I think the latter. I think the latter is healthier.
I will say, just thinking about the weight that is coming to the women, I'm here for it, obviously. But seeing 155 pound snatches in the age group qualifier for I think 30 to 35.
Yeah, 35, 39.
I mean, just seeing that as the weight that is expected of women, seeing the top end weight at 235 for the clean here, just seeing that kind of gauntlet thrown a bit is fun. And heavier dumbbells on the bench. I know Castro programmed heavier and heavier weights for people, and see that kind of keep going, and that expectation to continue to grow, especially as the caliber of the weight that the top women can lift has, I think, progressed faster than the men, because there was room for us to get better. We hadn't all been in a weight room since we were 14, like Mal O'Brien. Or earlier.
Yeah.
Right. Let me ask you this question, Beth. We can kind of wrap things up with this. So next year you're in the age groups. You still got a full-time job. You're still coming to Diablo all the time. Are you in for competing next year, team, and then or age group? And are you down to try and make both?
I am happy to pull myself away. I've been an athlete since I was 4. I'm 38. I've basically, notwithstanding pandemic years, I've been a competitive athlete. And, I was really grateful that we made it to semis, and I was able to kind of have that as a nice last ride. But it was also hard at the same time, not just the hours and the adjustment to my schedule, and kind of you have to let other balls drop, and that's really frustrating, and I'm old. Just knowing that I wasn't showing up as the fit version of myself, and knowing what that fit version is. I know
having an expectation of yourself.
I very much am in the knowledge of how fit you need to be competitive, and what that takes. And even to be middling competitive. I'm not, standing on a podium. But just knowing that that's a lot to put in. I think we talked about that with social media as well. And just kind of the stress of being a competitor is high. And at some point in time, it just is not worth it. And I don't think it's necessarily worth it to me. I think the only thing that I would have liked to have done differently this weekend was to not have the nerves and the stress that always hit me. I get very stressed out, even for open workouts, and it saps all my energy, and I've never solved that. And I would love to be able to show up and just compete and hit it hard and have fun. Right. Yeah. And be in it rather than kind of have a bad out of body experience. I don't like that.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I've been fortunate.
Yeah.
Right.
It's interesting. Okay, good. That's a great perspective. Well, whatever you completely decide to do, we're behind you all the way. And, the community will be as well. It's cool to have you in class. It's cool to have you training here. It's cool to have you helping us out and helping run the team, especially. So I'm grateful for that. And thank you for your performance this weekend. It was good to have you there. I knew that the Airbnb that our team was staying in was in good hands because Beth was in the house.
It you know what's really funny is I feel bad for other like teams. I mean, obviously CrossFit Davis, we had the same experience where not only did we have so many people cheering us on, like I could actually hear DCF cheers on the floor, which I normally don't hear or see anything. I mean, a literal woman got carted off the field to play and I had no idea. But even in the house, like it was like, even though we were a first heat team, we were going to the games because we had Emily's mom helping to cook, Annie and Cynthia, Jackson and Christian's significant others also cooking and helping clean. Like people were just taking care of us the whole weekend.
Good.
It was very nice because I was very tired.
Yeah. It turned out, it was a terrific experience.
It really was.
And and also thumbs up, CrossFit. You did a good job. We enjoyed the experience. Our fans that went, everybody that went, and that Gwen commented, it was a great experience for them. We had about, and if it's a 6-hour drive or, about a, $200 to $300 flight, depending upon when you buy your ticket. But we had 20 fans down there, at least 20, I think more than that, like 22.
It felt more like regionals, which again, I think, I'm happy to see where this is going as a result. And
it's
funner.
And as an affiliate, as an affiliate owner, if I can create fans of the sport, it's just one more hook in my member to keep them coming in here doing what they love to do. And you look at Dean with his daughter. His daughter's into it. His daughter's taking pictures with Captain Davis. Daughter's taking picture with our athletes, with Alessandra, and she's sitting and she's moving up, wanting to sit next to Alessandra to watch the events. That's cool. That has an influence on her, and she'll tell her friends. And
it's a better, again, we're talking about being isolated as a athlete. It's a better experience for the athletes too, because when we were done, mean, we finished 33rd. We got to go home to a pizza party and party with people that we enjoy laughing and being around.
Cheering you guys on the whole time.
It was so fun to get to spend that time. It was a really good way to end. And even that last workout, because we had so many bottlenecks and we were waiting, you could actually enjoy and like kind of look around and really enjoy the experience and seeing the people that showed up. Whereas, I think there's a lot of teams that traveled too far and don't have that community base. Then they're alone and they're celebrating. I saw people just go out to dinner. And that was it. And they had no one there but their coach, maybe, and a significant other. And so I think having something I know people still have to travel really far, but hopefully things that are closer to a regional like experience means that you can have more of your community there, which just makes it more fun.
For affiliate owners, I will tell you that if you're any affiliate owners listen to this or listening to this, please encourage your community to attend one of these semifinals or attend the CrossFit Games.
Keep it sustainable.
Keep it sustainable. It helps, but it is a powerful thing. Like when the first time you walk into, and still I get chills when I walk into the CrossFit Games. We're doing this forever.
And think about who was here for the weekend on the men and the women's side. I mean, I was obviously enjoying fangirling in our warm-up area, but it's the cheapest way to see the games.
Yes. Yeah. You go in and it's just, you get the chills, you see them there and you see what the human capacity is. The couple people said, literally fans said that to me. It's just really cool to see what people can do. And to know that these are the ones that you're seeing on social media, those are the ones of the CrossFit Games show, and you're
how
that
short
person.
They are.
Yeah.
Sorry, men and women. We're short in CrossFit, although maybe not less so this year.
Not everybody. How strong they are, how amazing our gymnastics. The whole process was just like it's really it is good for your community to have your community go to it. They will appreciate it, and they will be better members overall. Anyway, with that.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for competing this whole weekend and representing Diablo.
Dude, thank you for taking care of us.
Oh yeah, and Jamie Lee, by the way, thanks for coaching, running back and forth. With Jamie was running back and forth. He knows that trip. He knows that trip well down to that.
Programming, organizing, doing warm-ups, leading us through things, being a body worker, taking people to Chick-fil-A when they needed it.
That was good. Our community rallied.
I think there was a lot of teams there that didn't have the kind of support that we had. Just practical support is really helpful. And it's really lonely without it. And it's hard.
I think it's important to set that example too, because it's an important factor.
Something we've been doing since back in the day.
And it's okay to take yourself seriously, even if you're the 33rd place team, because it was hard enough to get there.
It is.
Practice the way you play.
Yep. So
right on.
Community here, both in the stands and off the stands, I think achieved greatness this weekend.
Agreed.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed it.
Till next time.